What is important in establishing the territories? Well, it certainly isn't the size of the bird. It's not like among humans where the big guy always gets the best. In this particular case, it's, as I mentioned, the song, the posture, and the plumage that's important in establishing territory. Let's assume now that the males in this cattail swamp have sectioned off or cordoned off all of their individual territories, and the floating males are now out in the periphery, out in other areas of the swamp away from this island. The next thing that becomes important is attracting the females. The males always arrive first. The females wait on the periphery, on the outside, until all of this territorial dispute is settled. Then the males switch, in essence, using those three mechanisms, especially song and plumage, song and plumage, to attract the females. Who gets the best females? The genetically superior females. It's kind of hard to judge what the best female is among red-winged blackbirds, but let's say the genetically superior females. Well, whatever redwings have the superior song, make the best displays of plumage, will probably get the superior females. Again, other females that are not attracted to a male are forced out into the females. They become floating members of the population as well. Red-winged blackbirds, like the majority of birds, especially non-flocking birds, as not chickens or turkeys, those types, are monogamous. It is a pair, and those pair mate for life. Once the females are attracted to the area, then breeding starts. Now, this is important because this is where territoriality really enhances the population of redwings. Advantages to territoriality. Well, we've already mentioned that it helps to establish the correct or the proper number of birds for the carrying capacity for that habitat. But it also strengthens pair bonds. That is to say that once the male and female form a pair bond, they become rather isolated, spatially isolated within their territory. They're not interfered with to any great extent by other males. It enhances the actual physical act of reproduction because they're not disturbed during the reproductive act. Also, once reproduction has been completed, the eggs are laid, that is, nesting is started. It protects the nesting process, the female is undisturbed, and it also protects the rearing of the young. In other words, other types of birds, especially the redwings, don't come in and bother, disrupt the raising of the fledglings. Now, the male, you might think, becomes inactive once the female starts nesting. Excuse me. That's not really true. The male still is active defending the territory. And they have an unusual mechanism they go through to defend the territory. Most of their territories have a series of perches around the periphery of the territory. And they will fly from perch to perch, circling the territory, and go through all of their displays and postures and whatever. And again, let the other birds know that this is their territory. And in this case, they have a hen, a mate, nesting, raising young, sitting on eggs, whatever. Once the fledglings leave the nest, territoriality then basically breaks down. Now, there's another major advantage to territoriality. You've noticed that as I've talked about how these animals, in this case the red-winged blackbirds, defend their territories, I have not talked about any kind of physical conflict. That is to say that although they go through all of these behavioral patterns, this agonistic behavior, the birds don't interact. They don't jump on each other and beat the feathers out of each other. Well, this is one of the big advantages to territoriality in most species. It never requires bodily contact or harm to settle a territorial dispute. They have evolved genetically so that just the threat of some kind of action is enough to settle a dispute. It'd be nice if humans had evolved that mechanism. How do we settle our territorial disputes? Usually by some kind of armed interaction and sometimes war. What a foolish thing to do. Because not only does war kill people, but it often kills a portion of the population that is part of our, I can use the term, breeding stock, that's responsible for future generations. It's one of the most foolish things that man does. Lower animals, especially the birds and fish, don't do that. They settle their disputes without injury and almost always without death. Now, I don't want you to think that birds are the only organisms that are territorial. That's not true. In fact, as I pointed out to you just a few moments ago, even man is territorial. In fact, almost all organisms, from some of the simplest invertebrates on up through the mammals, show a great deal of territoriality. Let me just briefly mention fish. Fish show a tremendous amount of territoriality in defending their nests, in defending their spawning sites, in defending the territories that they prefer for feeding, and a variety of other reasons. I could go on with a number of different types of organisms, but I think the redwings, overall, give us the best example of territoriality.